I think there is a genuine nature of what true leadership means. That's more around like a tapping into the deeper level of my own intuition and my kind of, whatever wild spirit that's distant and different from the expectations or thoughts that I've heard on all the leadership podcasts and all the books that I've read and all the kind of like thoughts that other people have. But it's like true leadership is individual to each person because it's like connected to their core of who they are sort of meant to be at their highest self.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we sit down with executive leaders to explore what leadership really means through the lens of their stories, their wins, their struggles, their vision, and their lessons along the way. I'm Ty Hammond, founder of One Mountain Leadership and creator of the True Leadership Approach, an awareness-based path that helps leaders shift their focus from what to do about their problems to how to grow from them. Whether you're just stepping into leadership or are well-seasoned and at the top of your game, your potential won't be realized following someone else's script, but you can draw insights from their stories and turn it into wisdom by putting it into practice in your own life. Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we explore the essence of leadership beyond tactics and performance by sitting down with executives to hear what matters most to them. I'm your host, Ty Hammond. Today's guest is Adam Rosendahl. Adam is the founder and CEO of Nite, a global movement redefining how organizations build trust and connection through creativity. Blending art, psychology, and facilitation, Nite Art has led more than 700 experiences across 24 countries for companies like Google, Adobe, Pixar, Nike, and Southwest Airlines. His signature method breaks down barriers in just 90 minutes, creating the kind of trust most teams take months or years to achieve. A sought-after facilitator and speaker, Adam helps HR and executive teams turn creativity into a business strategy for belonging, collaboration, and innovation. His work empowers leaders to humanize culture from the inside out, embedding creative connection as a core operating principle. Part artist, educator, and DJ, Adam lives at the intersection of heart and performance, helping organizations rediscover that creativity isn't decoration for business. It's the connective tissue that makes it work. It's my real pleasure to have Adam on the show today. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you so much, Ty.
So I always start here. Every leader, every human, of course, has a beginning, starts taking shape long before we make it to any executive position of leadership. I'm curious if you'd be willing to share. Who is someone from your early life or an early experience that really helped shape the not only the leader, but the person that you are today?
It's so clear who it is. And in my life, I met him when I was 13. I attended a leadership arts camp on Whidbey Island, Washington, and the founder of that camp, his name is Charlie Murphy. He initially was a musician in the gay rights movement, and then he became a facilitator and a youth empowerment practitioner. And he created this incredible program that I was part of and ended up being part of for 23 years. And Charlie, he had an incredible way of, I guess, like working with people who were non-believers. So I watched him sort of transform resistance and skepticism and sort of like haters, especially around the arts and around the power of creativity. And what he did was truly international. So he turned this nonprofit that started around Seattle, Washington, into an international organization that operated in 24 countries and worked a lot with educators in South Korea, across Uganda, Colombia, Brazil. And I just watched him again and again showcase how the arts can be a tool for human connection across difference and really cut through some of the most challenging issues of our time. And so he was a big mentor for me around facilitation, around leadership, around really like rooting in belief in the arts and creativity and what is possible.
Well, that's so incredibly powerful. And it's such a formidable age. I'm really curious, do you have a particular memory to share or something that happened that's such my son is 13 right now. So I'm thinking about, the extent of like how shaped we are at that age. I'm curious, tell me a little bit about your experience when you met this person that seems like you've, you know, clearly gone into a similar path yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. He wrote a book with his colleague and co founder called Catch the Fire. And a lot of people who knew Charlie, who know me, they say, Adam, you caught the fire. Like you've taken that. So I think I was 13 years old. I was pretty small. I was going into this camp that was for 14 to 18-year-olds. So I was the youngest kid. It was, in the middle of the woods on Whidbey Island, Washington. And Charlie was, he was just, I'd say, like a cool guy. He had like an earring, kind of like a leather jacket. He was a musician. But I think that one thing that really struck me is that he was a great song leader. And so he would say, the only thing you need to know about singing is that all you have to do is open your mouth and breathe. And so he would kind of convince the most unlikely people to break into a group song. And so I just remember being a kid and experiencing the cathartic power of singing in a group, and what a beautiful and connective experience that was for me. And it really cracked me open. Yeah. So he kind of taught me to use my voice in a way that I think like opened me up.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today, specifically to talk about this intersection of creativity and leadership. And you just said one right there, right? Like actually using our voice and how creative expansion and play can help us, in the what feels like maybe the more mundane or less creative.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, in this podcast, we're exploring the essence of leadership, what I would call true leadership. That's going to mean different things to different people. I'm curious to hear from you. What does true leadership mean to you? What makes a true leader in your eyes?
The thing that comes to me right now is, something I actually said today on a phone call with a friend was, I have so much admiration for people who have done the inner work, grappling with their own demons and insecurity. And they've done that behind the scenes so that when they show up with other people, they're able to be fully available and of service to support others. And I feel like this is part of true leadership, is being in a space of service and complete support of our teams and the people around us. I think there is a genuine nature of what true leadership means that's more around like a tapping into the deeper level of my own intuition and my kind of, whatever wild spirit that's distant and different from the expectations or thoughts that I've heard on all the leadership podcasts and all the books that I've read and all the kind of like thoughts that other people have. But it's like true leadership is individual to each person because it's like connected to their core of who they are sort of meant to be at their highest self.
Yeah, 100%. That's why, I have this idea of like the whole beyond performance and, not being able to take somebody else's ideas about what true leadership is and apply it to yourself, but that's not really what or how it works. Of course, that willingness to confront your demons, your shadows, doing the inner work is something that you brought up at the beginning there. I think that's absolutely, from my perspective, absolutely essential to the work of true leadership. And so I'd be curious to hear you expound on, what that, I know that this is a really, really big subject, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like, what is that inner work? How would you articulate what helps you actually to get to that experience of true leadership in yourself, or one, two?
I just did my first 360 leadership assessment and had 30 people from my life, my colleagues, friends, family members, and clients like assessing. And I think that's an incredibly powerful tool around to like really highlight. I have a lot of like awareness and like light shining on like I know the areas in which I have a lot of work to do and to grow. But I think getting those like direct quotes from people who are in my inner circle is powerful, super powerful for me and for anyone to kind of like look at where they want to put some work.
Absolutely. What I imagine not only where to put some work, but also where the work is showing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, life and leadership, of course, is it's a path shaped by fundamental turning points. These turning points can be, smack, like a lightning bolt of an experience that happens all in one moment, or they can occur over longer periods of time. I'm curious to hear you talk about a particular turning point in your own life. One maybe where, you realize that your current way of leading or living was no longer able to meet the demands of life, and you needed to grow in some significant way.
Yeah, I love the question. And I often would talk about, like, in I think like some of the crucible moments of my life, I would talk about this camp that I went to. But another one was when I guess it was 2015. I just started my business in more of a public format. It didn't have like a revenue model, and it wasn't really a business yet. And I got a business coach for the first time, and I invested something like $10,000 in a 9-month program. That for me at the time was like a ridiculous amount of money that I did not have, and I just had enough belief in myself to like throw in a huge amount of cash to like explore. And I had this coach, and I was part of this entrepreneurship program called Move the Crowd. My coach, her name is J. Love Calderon. She was in Queens, New York. And she called herself motherly with a sword at her side. But I got like whipped into shape. Like this was a coaching relationship. It's that I could not be 1 minute late. It's like, that would mean a huge disrespect of the way I'm treating time. There was just a lot of kind of like learning and growing and elevating of myself and what's possible, and how to do a lot in a short period of time, how to kind of break through some of my money blocks as an artist turned entrepreneur. And there was a lot that happened for me around leadership. So I'd say that year was a big turning point. And at the end of that year, I was on stage in New York, and I presented my business as a case study in front of 100 people. And there was an investor who was on stage, and he just wrote me a check that basically paid for the majority of my program. So like that, there was something in that like kind of moment in my life that around like trusting myself and like allowing myself to believe in a higher version of what was possible.
Love that so much. I mean, it sounds like that's a turning point for so many reasons. And obviously turning points are so much about letting go of something and allowing something new to emerge. What would you say is, what you were needing to let go of in that moment, and what emerged from that turning point?
I think that what I needed to let go of in 2015, and what I still need to let go of, that's connected to the shadow, the demon, it's definitely around the self-doubt, and I think that I've heard, every human has, like, there are 3 different main voices that cycle through our heads. It's like, and one of them is I'm not enough, and one of them is, it's like, kind of little old me, like, why, who would want to like listen, or so there's something around that voice of self-doubt, and that kind of like, that can be crippling. And if like listened to, it leads to just not really doing very much. And so having to deal with that, the inner critic and the self-doubt, and kind of like move above that and continue to transcend that. That's been a big part of the journey, for me. And I think that as much as, like the highest top of the mountain, like right afterward can be the fall. I think about that's so common for my friends who have done their main stage TED talk, for instance, and then the next day have like a feeling of like crippling, like despair, basically. So it's just like this fascinating thing of like, the journey and the peaks of the mountain, and just enjoying the ride. And yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a really great lead into my next question, which is really about, you've already spoken so much about growth and this, this coach that you had back in 2015. I'm maybe curious to hear a little bit from you, a little bit more, in terms of more recently in your leadership journey, and your personal growth journey. What's been the most the valuable investment that you've made in yourself for your own growth over the years?
Well, I've had another coach. His name is James Key Lim, and he was a coach for me in 2021 and has played a number of roles in my business. But we've gone deep as collaborators. And he is someone who has like really, really had my back and believed in me in a big way. When we started working together in 2021, in 2022, my business doubled. And so like that investment, and I think there was a direct tie into the work that we were doing together. Part of it was just around like doubling the amount that I was charging, like, and kind of just putting a lot more emphasis around like the value of what I was bringing, and just taking it more seriously, honestly, and really kind of like standing up straight and coming to a different identity and different version of myself and the work that we were doing. So that was huge. That was relatively recently, and so it's fascinating how having people on our team or in our support circle can really change the game, of course, with revenue, but also just in terms of our self-identity and having someone who has our back so much that it helps us believe in ourselves even when we forget.
Well, just so amazing. Of course, we were never meant to do it alone. And this is
No.
absolutely one of the coolest things that I love about these podcasts is I get to really hear patterns.
Yeah.
And over and over and over again, it's that mentorship. It's the person who's got your back. It's for myself included. So it's not, but really recognizing that. And so much of the stories that you've shared here and how you've grown, it's been the support, the people who have inspired you and coached you and believed in you along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, I'm really curious to hear your response to this next question. You've already really so inspiring, created so much with late night art. I've experienced, full transparency to everybody out there, I've been at some of Adam's events, and they're absolutely incredible. It's really, really inspiring. I'm curious, what's your vision for your leadership, your legacy, and the impact that you want to have in the years ahead?
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot, honestly, with the state of the United States, the state of the world, living in this time of AI and robots and disconnection, loneliness, mental health crisis. And what is the role that I want to play? What is the role that I am playing? How can I be part of the solution? And I, in May, I'm going to be in DC working with a friend on the 250th anniversary of the United States and doing late night art with 25 Republicans and 25 Democrats. And this is part of like a bridge building program that my friend Scott Shigioka has a bus called the Curiosity Mobile, and he's traveling across the US and doing all these activations around building bridges across divides in our country. This is part of the vision that I see myself playing as being a connector in the world of disconnection, really helping humanize people beyond the roles that they play at work and beyond the identities that they see. But deeper than that, I think ultimately the thread of my life has been using art as a tool to create space where people feel like they belong, helping highlight the use of creativity to connect with ourselves, connect with each other, and connect with the place that we are in. And so I see that as the thread of my life. I see like that is the essence of the work that I do. I've done it with many different audiences: law enforcement, scientists, lawyers, bankers, doctors, teachers, 12-year-olds, like 90-year-olds. These days do it more and more with executives and teams, and that's been the thread. But I think that using the arts, music, visual art, creative writing, I don't often incorporate song, dance. Like, I think there are ways that I can incorporate somatics more, but I think like all of the art modalities as a tool to help people connect deeper within themselves in a sort of art therapy sense, and then also with each other in a way that feels like a celebration. It feels fun, but it also has the access to go really deep. That it just gives me so much joy and fulfillment. Like I love it. I would do it all the time. And I do it all the time without even, not like for work. It's just like when I invite people to my house, like this is what I like to do as well. So I see that being more and more part. I mean, this is my life, but in terms of like, where's the business going? I plan to hire another facilitator in Mexico to do more work in Latin America, to hire a facilitator in Brazil, and also in India. So I see the work continuing to get more and more global. I see the opportunity for us to have a social impact arm of the business that more is really focused around combating social disconnection in our country and polarization and intergenerational disconnection. I see teaching a college course around intergenerational connection and the use of designing for human connection and in experience design and curriculum design. These are a couple things. Yeah.
Well, that sounds absolutely amazing, and I'm seeing it all happen for you because boy, does the world need it. We need it. We need this connection and the bridge across these divides. Especially, I feel like I want to get in touch with you after you have this conversation between the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm so curious to see what happens there. Just out of curiosity, have you ever met a group of folks that you couldn't connect through art?
Yeah, and I mean the thing I'll add on to the vision is how can I do all of that? Well, like coming from a really healthy baseline where I'm deeply in touch with myself and my own intuition, and I'm like thriving, flourishing in my social life, my romantic life, my my own connection with the world. So the people that I think are most difficult, I mean, honestly, it's funny how there's a lot of cultural stereotypes around like different countries and like how business groups interact. But I have worked a lot with French executives, with German executives, with Swiss executives, and with Israeli companies. And I have to say, French and Israeli like leaders don't like to be told what to do as a general stereotype. So facilitating a connective experience is quite difficult with a bunch of people who don't really want to be told what to do. So that's one element. German and Swiss executives, I'd say as a stereotype, don't often combine personal vulnerability into the workplace as much. So that's also a challenge in terms of the work that I do, where I'm asking people to like unarmor up in these kind of environments. And then I'd say generally academics who are working in like high academia and scientists who live in the world of numbers and labs can be some of the more challenging audiences that I've worked with. Yeah. Well, but I'd say like, I also like being in Louisville, Kentucky and working with probation officers who are like hard, like in some ways they live with a lot of sarcasm because their work is so challenging. Like these are all audiences where they typically are not like, let's use art to talk about the emotional layers that we don't usually see.
It's so cool. And I'd be curious, and I would not be surprised if you, through the evolution of late night art, don't find a creative way to meet some of those populations that have a harder time as well. Such.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when I say hard populations, like I've worked with all of these populations, and like I found my way through. And with each opportunity, there's an unlock around like how do you access the point that is going to like, and sometimes it's the right song that will like, just completely change the tone of the room. And that was the case with the group of French executives that I'm thinking of, where I played this like one specific old French song that was very disarming, and all of a sudden they all like knew the words and they were all singing along, and it was like it came from being a very combative, like weird, disengaged audience that I thought was sort of a goner, and all of a sudden the room came together. And so it's a fascinating how, again, like music I think is one of those invisible tools that is incredibly powerful to unify a group of people.
Well, I love that. I love that story because it really points to the deep potential and necessity of connection in all human beings everywhere, no matter the culture. All that there may be different sort of entry points to that, but and also what I hear in that, Adam, and as a facilitator myself, and having seen you as a facilitator, is a kind of deep listening that is required. As you were just to harken back to what you were saying before, that deep listening I think is necessary to do that inner introspection in order to listen to what's needed in the room, to play that right song, whatever that is. Yeah.
Essential. Yeah, I mean, if I'm just like doing whatever it says on the page that I wrote down before I walked in the room, and I'm kind of blind or like deaf to what's going on in front of me, this is why it's hard for me to imagine like AI robots taking on the nuanced role of the facilitator. I know that people are using AI for therapy, which is like kind of shocking, like in a traditional way. It's really hard for me to imagine a group of people like responding to a robot telling them what to do. But
Same here. Same here.
maybe I'm just trying like, being optimistic around my own profession. But
I mean, I'm right there with you. Potentially, I've got those blinders on too, though I think there is something to embodiment of something as opposed to just the intelligence of something. And that's the wisdom, which I don't think artificial intelligence will ever have.
Absolutely. And just the kind of the human nature of empathy, and like, if I've gone through a really hard experience and somebody is describing like something that they've gone through, and there's emotion there, and then it brings up emotion in me, and then the whole room is feeling that, like that's a resonant moment that is like you can't replicate that.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious as well because this, first of all, this vision sounds like late night art could go so many places beyond the executive room, like you're saying, to all globally and all kinds of different populations. As this continues to grow, as you see your leadership grow, as you see your voice being more prominent, what are the ways that you feel like you're going to most need to grow as a leader and as a human in order to really step into what's next for you and for late night art?
I mean, the first thing that came up for me, like, I mean, let's see, one thread is when I walk into any room, I think that I walk into a lot of rooms where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Like I have been in these sort of executive tables in the room where it's happening, where the decisions are being made with government, with politicians, with like the staff of cities, with government officials. It's very interesting to like operate in so many different industries and see people who are working at this higher level. And then for me to hold my sense of self, that I belong here, that I'm an equal, that I have like something that's really valuable and important to share. So like that feels like an important leadership capacity for me, is to continue to be in that space of, really believing in every human being is equal and no one is better or like kind of worse than others, and we all have wisdom to share, and it's really important to be in a space of curiosity, to like learn like from everyone. But so self-belief, and then the second one I think is a huge aspect of, I think, where I'm at now, is stepping from the front of the room to the back of the room and being a trainer and being a coach, a mentor, and really, really patiently exploring how can I help people grow incrementally as facilitators, experienced designers, and in this kind of unique work of using the arts and creativity in the workplace, where I'm training people who are not necessarily facilitators to be more confident in taking risks and using creativity in the way that they run their all hands meeting, the way that they're kind of like facilitating connection across the entire company. And so this is requiring a different type of leadership of me, I think, to step into that role. And I also have a team of 7 other facilitators on my late night art squad. And, we have 1 in Germany, 1 in the UK, 1 in Boston, 1 in Chicago, and 4 in the Bay Area. And what's, this like chapter of time is pushing me to do is step more and more into the qualities of being a CEO, of being a leader, of taking the wheel of the organization and making decisions quickly, like trusting my own intuition, not getting too perfectionistic, but like charging forward. So there's a lot, there's a lot of like leadership capacities that I feel like I'm growing in. But ultimately, it's like a trusting in myself and a trusting into my intuitive knowing, so I can make decisions quickly and not get so caught up in what other people want or think I should do.
Well, this is why I love having the conversation around leadership, because I feel like it is being in these kinds of situations that is requiring us of growth that we engage with these essential questions and everything that you're talking about that help us to really drop into the essence of what being human is, not just as a business owner, not just as an executive leader, but as you were saying earlier, thriving in all areas of your life and how we show up in all of those ways. I really, really get that sense in talking with you, Adam.
Yeah. And I think I've heard someone talk about becoming as a man, like becoming a father can be one of the ultimate spiritual practice. And I think about that with leadership in terms of, I'm not a dad, but I can imagine becoming a parent being like one of the most important leadership moments of my life in terms of creating a healthy family that is not, focused around my needs, but I'm truly kind of like leading the way to help like nurture and grow someone else. So yeah, I feel like leadership, of course, it like goes into so many aspects of life.
Well, I feel
and
like
we're always leading and following in different forms. And it's so important for me to be able to fall into being following someone else's footsteps and not need to have my way.
this last question, Adam, is more of an invitation. I just want to give you the time and the space here to offer to our listeners whatever it is that's most in your mind and heart right now to share. Anything at all, take your time. The floor is yours.
Sure. The thing that I'm thinking about is, we are spending so much time with groups of people, like at parties, at concerts, at restaurants, like out at our jobs. And every time I see a group of people who's gathered in a space, I see the potential, the possibility of what would it be like if this group of people really felt seen and connected and heard, and how would they operate together? Like what would be the highest version of this group? And what I realize is it takes at least a couple people to take a risk to like really put themselves out there to initiate and like break the third wall, or whatever we want to call it, that like keeps people divided. So I would, I think about a lot, like how can we change the dynamic of nightlife and like just and all of the different ways in which we're sort of operating as a society, to just, because I know, when I was 13, I had that experience of being part of a group of people at that camp that was operating on another level that in a way for me felt like the deepest way of relating that I'd ever experienced in my life. And it felt like a different color of reality, And so I think a lot about, why does the world need to be so safe and boring in some ways? Like, I think that there is so much more possibility and depth when we step into a deeper level of relating. And yeah, so I would just encourage people to take more risks in terms of getting curious, asking people questions, breaking the wall that divides people, and sharing more of themselves. And yeah, like I recognize that it feels, and sometimes scary, and people want to stay compartmentalized or like hide, but I think we need a bit more people to jump in there.
Adam, I so appreciate the wisdom that you've shared here with me today. I've really gotten so much out of it, enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure that whoever listens is equally going to benefit from what you've shared here today. Thank you so much for being my guest on the True Leadership Podcast.
Yeah, so great to see you, Ty. Thank you for the thoughtful questions, and looking forward to hopefully getting to see you in person very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the True Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by One Mountain Leadership, where we help leaders grow the capacity, confidence, and presence of true leadership through the True Leadership approach. To learn more about the approach, our offerings, our community, and how we can help you realize your potential in both leadership and in life, visit us at onemountainleadership.com.